YouTube. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing a lot of things around this movie right here in my hand, Holes. We're going to be doing a movie review. Let's get into Holes, the movie, the book, the soundtrack. I am a stan. Y'all don't even know. Y'all don't know. The stanery of this movie is on level 100. Like, I can quote this movie backwards and forwards. I know all the characters. I know their backstories. I've read the book a bunch of times. I know this story so well. Now, I haven't read the book in a long time. I read it a lot when I was a kid in like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. So I used to read that book a lot. And of course, you know, this movie right here was everything and then some. Tall, dark, and handsome. I was obsessed. When this movie first came out and I first saw the previews for it on the Disney Channel, I got excited, but I really didn't know about anything about this movie or the book or anything about it. So it's just like something that, you know, Shia LaBeouf had just ended doing Even Stevens, so that was over, and he was transitioning into doing movies, so that was a thing. But I never really got into the book or anything like that prior to watching this movie. And so one day, my mom and my sister's best friend's mom, who at the time was a school teacher for special education kids, wanted to go see the movie. And so she invited my mom to come along, and my mom said, well, I was home at the time, and she was like, want to go see this movie? And I was like, sure, why not, you know? I went to see the movie. I came out of the movie, and literally immediately after seeing that movie for the first time, I have to buy the DVD. I have to buy the soundtrack. I have to know everything about this. Buy me the book. Holes. And it became my life for at least 2 years. Like 2 years, y'all don't know. Every day after this movie came on DVD, every single day after school in 6th grade, I would come home from school, make myself a big bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios, run up to my room, which at that time I did not share a room with anybody, so I had my own room at that time. I had a nice recliner in my room, and I had the big screen TV. It was a beautiful situation. But basically, I would just run upstairs with my Honey Nut Cheerios, close the door of my room, put in my Holes DVD, and just watch it for hours and hours and hours on repeat. And it was just something that really, really, really just floored me. I don't know what it was about the movie and everything. It just made me so happy. I definitely had a crush on Cleo Thomas, aka Zero, aka Hector Zeroni, of course. I definitely did. I had a crush on him. But who didn't? Like, who really 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 didn't? Zero the hero. Anyways, yeah, Holes was just one of those movies that I was enamored with at that age. And it was just something that went on to become one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite books, one of my favorite stories of all time. And to this day, it's my second favorite movie of literally all time. And I love the book and the soundtrack and everything that goes with it. Every time I think about this movie, every time I watch it, I just go back to being 12 years old, sitting in my room, eating my Honey Nut Cheerios, and just living my best life. And I love it. I love it so much. So today we're going to be talking about Holes. So what's the story of Holes? So basically, Holes, first of all, Holes stars Shia LaBeouf, like I said, and it's one of his first big screen away from Disney Channel roles after he had just finished doing Even Stevens, had just wrapped, and he just did the Even Stevens movie, and he was basically done with his Disney Channel days and was ready to go on to bigger and better things. Not that Disney Channel isn't great, but he had done a lot for the channel. He had been on Disney Channel since 2000, I bet, and he did the Even Stevens, and then he did the Even Stevens movie, and he also did this movie that a lot of people, I guess, haven't seen a lot because they don't show it that much anymore, but this DCOM, this Disney Channel original movie called True Confessions. where he played an autistic twin. He was the fraternal twin, so he was the boy, and he had a twin sister. And oh my gosh, he is so incredible in that movie. Honestly deserved a daytime Emmy, deserved a bunch of awards. Top-notch acting. If you want to watch a movie where you will definitely cry, please watch True Confessions. It is so good. It is so good. He was incredible in that movie. So it makes sense that they would pick him to play Stanley Yelnats in Holes. Now, Stanley Yelnats, main character, in the book, Stanley Yelnats is a chubby child. And he is bullied at school. Kids don't like him, and they just make fun of him all the time. And there's this one scene, which they actually do film, they just don't put it in the movie. But there's this one scene where the bully basically makes him late and miss his bus, which actually is one of the catapults for the whole story of Holes. But they don't put it in the movie, but if you watch the deleted scenes on this DVD, then you know that it's there. But basically, there's this bully, and he basically made Stanley late and miss the bus because he throws all of his homework and books and stuff into the toilet, makes him miss his bus. He has to get all this stuff out of the toilet, and then once he does, he ends up walking home. While he's walking home, simultaneously, which we learn later a little bit about something else that happens, but simultaneously, Stanley is walking home, and these shoes end up falling on his head. Just random falling on his head. Like they come flying out of the sky and fall on his head. Random, I know. But by doing that, he's like, oh, these shoes are really awesome. So he runs home. So the cops escort Stanley home. And once they get there, they meet Stanley's family. We meet his mom. We meet his dad, Stanley Yelnats the third. And we meet Stanley Yelnats' grandfather, Stanley Yelnats the second. And basically, Stanley is escorted by the cops because they think that Stanley stole the shoes. Because apparently, these shoes were charity shoes that Clyde Livingston Sweet Feet, who's supposed to be this imaginary baseball player, gave to this charity. And so he thinks that Stanley stole the shoes. And Stanley's like, that's not why I was running. I was not trying to steal no shoes. My father... So Stanley's father is obsessed with trying to find a cure to stinky feet. And the whole movie, this is like a subplot, but like a small one, but like also a one that actually is big in the end. But he's trying to find a cure for stinky feet. And he keeps trying to find it and keeps trying to find it. So he keeps getting different types of shoes to try it out. And so that's why Stanley was running home to give his father the shoes. And the police are like, nah, son, you were trying to steal the shoes. You going to jail. So they have this whack-ass court. Let's be real, because there was only like 6 people there. There was no jury. And Stanley did not even get to defend himself. But they were basically like, boy, you poor. So you're just going to go to yourself to either jail or you can go to Camp Green Lake with these other kids. And he was like, well, I've never been to camp before. And they were like, well, works for us. 18 months Camp Green Lake. And so then it transitions to Stanley going to Camp Green Lake and basically meeting all the boys of the detent, meeting X-Ray, meeting Armpit, meeting Zigzag, meeting Magnet, meeting Squid, and meeting Zero, of course. And, you know, it's amazing. So they get to the camp, he meets all the guys, he meets Mr. Sir, played by John Boyd, and he meets Dr. Pendanski, who is a loony and really is actually very, very rude and mean to these boys. Like, they're only like, a lot of these kids are like only like between 14 and like 16 or 17. So it's really crazy to me because they're just like, he's like really, really rude. Like, all of the boys in detent and basically in the whole camp, they all have their government names, right? But they also have these other names they like to be called by, like nicknames that they feel are more appropriate for who they are at this camp. And Dr. Pendanski, being the jerk that he is, decides he's not going to call them by those names. He's not going to make them feel comfortable in their surroundings. He's not going to help them with their transition. He's just going to act like a total jerk and just basically make them feel like the juvenile delinquents that he makes them out to be, you know? And it's real awful, but anyways, so we meet Zero, and of course, Dr. Penensky says, you want to know why they call him Zero? Because there's nothing going on in his stupid little head. I was like, yo, rude, so rude, you're rude, Dr. Penensky's rude. Anyways, so after all the boys have been met, Stanley gets accompanied with everything. He eats dinner with them and all the things, and then he tells them how he got sent to Camp Green Lake, and they were like, how did you get sent to Camp Green Lake? And he was like, I stole some shoes. And then Zero looks up and is like, did they have red X's on them? And he's like, yeah. He's like, okay. Because that's going to come back into play in the end. But basically, so they're like, that's okay, like whatever. And then eventually we find out how some of the other boys got in there, like Magnet tried to steal a puppy, which was so cute. I was just like, aw, he just tried to steal a puppy. All he wanted was some companionship in his life. Anyways, so we meet the boys, all that stuff happens. Stanley digs his first hole, and he just basically is confused, like what the big deal is about these holes. And all Mr. Sir and X-Ray and everybody keeps saying is, it's building character. And he's like, nah, this ain't it. This ain't it, Chief. This ain't it, Chief. There's something else going on. So basically, in between all of this, there are some flashbacks that end up happening during the movie. One of the flashbacks that ends up happening during the movie is of Stanley's great grandfather, the great pig stealing great grandfather, who is named Elliot Yelnats, and he used to be in Latvia, in Europe somewhere. So Elliot Yelnats basically was best friends with this old lady named Madame Zeroni, played by the amazing, the incomparable Catwoman herself, Eartha Kitt. But this was Eartha Kitt, like old Eartha Kitt, but she still looked fine. She still looked great. She still looked amazing. I was like, go ahead, Eartha. Go ahead. And can I just say one thing? I love it when artists, when musicians, when actors, actresses from like the 50s, 60s, 70s came and were a part of like 90s and like early 2000s stuff, even 80s. I was here for it. I was like, when they just guest starred on all these TV shows or in all these movies, I was like, yes. I was like, it doesn't matter that y'all are like really old. Y'all are still popping, and that's beautiful to see you still able to be in these movies and these TV shows and everything. Anyways, so they're best friends. Elliot Yelnats and Madame Zeroni are really close. She's like that old lady who just gives advice to everybody and is like really awesome, and like, you know, like that old elderly neighbor down the street, and she like gives you that beautiful advice and you're just like really close with her. That's basically how Elliot Yelnats and Madame Zeroni were. And so one day Elliot Yelnats falls in love with this girl, but she basically has these punk relatives, her dad and this other guy who wants this girl as well. And so basically the dad says, you have to choose, girl. So basically Elliot Yelnats has to bring this pig to the dad in exchange for his daughter. So he goes to Madame Zeroni and says, what should I do? You know, I need to bring this pig to him, but I don't really have one, and the ones I have are not that big. And so she's like, take the pig up the mountain and drink, and let the pig drink, and then say this beautiful like lullaby type thing. If only the woodpecker sighs, the bark on the trees were as soft as the skies, the woods slink below, hungry and lonely, she cries to the moon, if only. And so basically he's supposed to do that a bunch of times till the pig gets real fat. So you're supposed to do that a bunch. And then after all of that, you're supposed to take Madame Zeroni up the mountain and sing while she drinks so she can be nourished. And basically, he didn't do that. So basically, Elliot Yelnats just goes to the girl. The girl basically is like, look, I'm picking the fat dude. And he's like, what? Like, and she's like, yeah, he has a bigger pig. And he's like, well, you are schmuck. Well, that's what Mazzaroni called her. Schmuck.
Morris Menke is a schmuck.
So basically, Elliot Yelnats is like, look, she didn't want me. I'm heartbroken. Deuces. I'm leaving town. And earlier, Mazzaroni had told Elliot Yelnats that her son has moved to the United States, and so he should go live there in America, right? So he's like, bet, I'm gonna go get on this boat, I'm gonna go leave and go to America. So he gets on the boat, falls asleep, and then in his head, he remembers, oh crap, I was supposed to take Mazzaroni up the mountain and sing while she drinks so she can be nourished. And then he's just like, oh well. And then basically, for the rest of eternity, so basically until Shia Stanley, there's this big curse on the family, and basically they have to rectify with that for the whole movie. So yeah. So the second flashback that we end up getting throughout this movie is of Camp Green Lake before the lake dried up. So we go back in time, and this flashback we get more periodically throughout the movie up to a certain point. So around the time that Stanley finds this, what they think is a fossil, they have this really cute moment, and they think it's a fossil, right? And he tries to show it to Dr. Podensky because at the beginning of the movie, he's told if he finds anything interesting while he's digging to tell Dr. Podensky or Mr. Sir, and they would go and tell the warden. And so he tells Dr. Podensky, look, I think I found something. And he's like, no one cares about a fossil. That's not what we're out here looking for. And he's like, oh, so we're actually looking for something. Okay, this is fishy. Anyways, so we go back in time. So that's when we have like a flashback before this lake dried up. We have a flashback back to when Camp Green Lake as a town was a thriving town with lots of people, and it had a school for the kids, and it was a thriving, beautiful town with a beautiful lake. Lots of people used to come there all the time, and it was a city of trade. So the story that deals with old Green Lake is basically one of love, forbidden love at that, and basically how vindictive people try to tear apart somebody who was in love, and basically then she goes out for revenge and basically tries to hurt you because she's mad that her lover ended up dying. So basically, story, Sam the Onion Man and Kissing Kate Barlow, who was just gone by Catherine Barlow at that time, were in love. He used to come to her schoolyard and fix up the schoolhouse, and he really loved her, she really loved him, and he was a onion trader, and she used to sell peaches. So in exchange for one another, they would exchange that for Sam helping to fix things around the schoolyard and the schoolhouse, and eventually they fell in love. It was really beautiful. But the townspeople, especially this guy named Trout, who really just was a vindictive person, who if he did not get his way, he was going to get like pissed. And this was taking place, I want to say, in the early 1900s, early to mid 1900s, in, this Texas town where being black and loving a white woman and vice versa was against the law. And so this was around the time, which, people still do this to this day, but it's more undercover, except for now it's out in the open thanks to our current president. But basically, back then, it was like really widespread so it was super widespread back then that if a black man loved the white woman and vice versa, the black man was going to die by hanging. Because there's a scene in the movie, and it's way worse in the book, but there's a scene in the movie, and basically the whole town is being burned down. And Kate goes to find the sheriff to go be like, why is everybody burning down everything? And he basically like, gonna kiss me? And she's like, you're drunk. And he's like, I'm always drunk before hanging. And she's like, well, if you're gonna hang him, you better hang me too, cause we are in love. And he's like, ain't gonna hang you. It ain't against the law for you. And she's like, okay. So she just runs away. And then there's a scene. Sam is rowing away in his boat to go sell some onions. And Kate's across the water. And she's like, no, Sam. And then she hears the gunshots. Sam goes down. And she's like, Sam. Rest in peace, honestly, to Onion Sam. Mr. I can fix that. There still needs to be justice for Onion Sam. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. So that happens. And then the next time we see the flashback, we see Kate, and she goes to the sheriff and says, still want that kiss? And he's like, oh yeah. And she's like, bang, 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 dead. And then kisses him and just walks out and steals his horses and all the outlaws in the jail. And she's just like, let's go. And then basically, for the rest of the time, she's basically just going around the Wild Wild West and going and robbing people. Robbing all these men. Anyways, so yeah, Kissing Kate Barlow's out in the Wild Wild West, and she's just robbing all these men. Robbing them, killing them, and robbing them. Killing them and robbing them. Because she is just so infuriated that they killed Sam the Onion Man, her love. She was like, boy, you killed my man, I'ma kill you. And that's basically what she did for like 13 years. And so 13 years later, Kissing Kate Barlow is like, I've had enough of this life, okay? I appreciate this life, it's cool and whatever, but I'm done. This is not what I really wanted to do. I just want to be with my man Sam, so I'm gonna die. So then she sees Trout Walker and one of her students, and they're basically like, the lake dried up after Sam died, and we're just looking for this treasure that you got. And she's like, you're never gonna find it. Not ever. Not you, your children, or your children's children will find it. And then she just takes one of the yellow spotted lizards and dies. Yeah. Fast forward back to camp. So this is when basically the climax is about to happen. Well, soon. So Caveman, during all of this, he got a new nickname named Caveman, because now the guys respect him. Because before they were kind of clowning him, but now they respect him. So they gave him a nickname named Caveman because he found the fossil. Anyways, so he found the fossil. They started calling him Caveman. He thinks he's the big man on campus, and he's happy. Eventually, Magnet, Mr. Cool Man, steals some sunflower seeds from Mr. Sir's car, because there's like the van, or like the truck, the water truck, and Magnet stole his sunflower seeds, which is a horrible thing because Mr. Sir, he chews sunflower seeds because he just stopped smoking. So he's like adamant about his sunflower seeds. So he sees they're missing, he rolls that truck back and goes and is inspecting everybody's holes. And of course, Stanley the Klutz, the whole bag of sunflower seeds all up in his hole. And Mr. Sir is like, so what's that? So what's that? So what's that? And Stanley's like, huh? What? What? And then basically just Mr. Sir is like, come with me. So they go see the warden, who, if you don't know by now, is Sigourney Weaver. And she's a badass in this role. Love her. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. That's what you're going to hear a lot of the movie. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Like, that's what she's going to say the whole movie. Anyways, so they go to her little cabin, and she's like, oh, Mr. Sir, you told me Stanley found something? What is it? All excited. They go and they're like, well, Stanley here stole my sunflower seeds. And the warden's like, fool, do I look like I've been shoveling in the hot sun since I was a baby, basically? And then hiring y'all to come and make this fake camp so that all these boys can go shovel in this hot desert sun so they can find me my treasure, just for you to come into my cabin with the only AC in the whole joint to tell me that Stanley stole your dang sunflower seeds? And she just went off, basically. And then she basically slaps him because she puts on this nail polish made with rattlesnake venom and basically slaps the crap out of Mr. Sir. Stanley's like, oh shit. So then he leaves and he comes back to the hole and he's like, thanks guys, thanks for digging my hole for me. And they're all like, honey, I did not dig your hole, okay? What do you think I am? And they're like, nah, Zero did it. And he's like, okay, Zero, okay, I see you now. So he's like, all right, homie, why'd you dig my hole? And he's like, you didn't steal the sunflower seeds. And he's like, well, neither did you. And he's like, you didn't steal the shoes. And Stanley's like, okay, I don't know why you keep bringing this up, but I mean, you dug my hole, so we gotta be boys, right? So he's like, well, what do you want out of this relationship of you digging my holes? And he's like, I just want to know how to read, boy. Because there's this scene where Stanley gets a letter from his mom, because he's writing a letter to his mom about camp and all these things and basically lying about it and saying how great it is. And then she writes him a letter back just saying like, that's wonderful, sweetie. Things back here are still stupid because your father thinks he can cure stinky feet. And my life, curses, whatever, right? And then Stanley's like reading it, right, and laughing. Here's the funny part. And Zero's like behind him like this, and Stanley's over here, and Zero's trying to read it, but he can't read it because he can't read. And Stanley's basically like, bro, like that's real rude. Don't be just eavesdropping on my conversation with my mama. And he just looks at him like, okay. So then later, when he digs Stanley's holes, Stanley's like, what do you want in return? And he's like, I just want to know how to read, because it's difficult out in these streets not knowing how to read. So if you could just help a brother out, I would just love it. Got some hooked on phonics or what? And so Stanley's like, yo, I got you. I'm not going to act like I'm the best student in the world, but I got you, bro. So he's like, bet. I will dig some holes for you if you can teach me how to read. And then they become eternally friends forever. So then there's of course the scene where Zero basically spills his guts about how he was homeless before he came to Camp Green Lake, and that he got separated away from his mom, and how he had to sleep in a park slide, and things were just horrible for him before he came to Camp Green Lake. And so that's why he sort of likes being there, even though things are really like terrible and everybody's mean to him. He just feels like it's the best place because he has nowhere else to go, and he's just a little orphan. My whole heart just went out to Zero. I was like, bro, I feel for you right now. Oh my gosh. Like, I grew up having dyslexia, so I can totally relate with Zero to a degree on the not reading thing. Like, it's hard, bro. I understand. Totally. Completely. But when he just goes on about the fact that he was like an orphan and he lost his mommy and he had to sleep on a slide in the park. Ugh, the tears. The literal tears at 12 years old, man. And that's probably why Zero became my favorite character in the whole movie. Because I could relate with him on the reading thing, and they just made me want to cry all the time. I just was like, I have to protect you at all costs, Zero! Anyways, so that all happens. Stanley's helping him read. Then one day, Zigzag's like, bro, to Stanley, bro, I see that Zero is digging your holes. That's not fair. That's not fair. He's like, I'm teaching you how to read, bro. It's not that serious, okay? He's like, nah, it's a big deal, okay? We all been here way longer than you, and you're getting special treatment? Now that's not okay. So he tries to fight him. And can I just say that scene where okay, so this scene comes up, right? Zigzag's trying to fight Stanley. It's a fake little cat fight. Mr. Podensky is like, what you gonna do, Stanley? You gonna fight him? And I'm like, Dr. Pendensky and Mr. Sir, those two were characters, right? And Dr. Pendensky would have just been like, fight, fight, fight. If he was in high school, if he was a kid in high school, he probably would have been the kid that would have been like, fight, 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 fight. And I would have been like, bro, unnecessary. But, yeah. So they're over here fighting, and Zero sees that Stanley's getting beat up, and at this point in the movie, Zero not having any family, not having any friends, Stanley being the only person who would talk to him in like a real way, and actually calls him Hector Zeroni and not just Zero, because Zero's like, Zero's not my real name. Like, I have an actual name. And he's like, what? But Dr. Pendensky calls everybody by their name, like their government name, but he only calls you Zero. And he's like, no, my name is Hector Zeroni. He's like, oh, okay, brother. So he just keeps calling him Hector Zeroni and really gains his respect. So when Stanley and Zigzag are over here fighting, Zero's like, oh no, sir, we are not about to have this up in my camp. So he goes over there and basically just puts him in a chokehold. Literally, I thought when I was 12, and to this day I cannot really watch this scene, but I really thought that Zigzag was gonna die. I was like, this bro gonna choke him to death. Oh my gosh. It was so scary. I didn't like it. I was like, dang, Zero, chill. Like, chill, bro, chill. I know things are hard up in the camp, but you need to chill, bro. Don't kill him. It's not necessary. And then finally, Dr. Pendensky's like,
Now I said that's enough. When I say to end something, I mean end it.
Come on,
Get
son.
back to your hole.
Let's go.
Zero's crazy.
like, I can't yank it anymore. Bang, 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 bang. And Zero gets off of him. So they call the warden. The warden's like, what's going on? And then Zigzag's like, Stanley ain't digging no holes. And then the warden's like, nah, Stanley's always digging his holes. And then like Squid's like, no, not all the time. And then the warden's like, what you talking about, sir? And then Squid's like, I'm sorry, ma'am, but Stanley over here is getting his holes dug by none other than Zero. And the warden's like, bro, you can't just have your holes digged. You're trying to build character. And he's like, well, I'm gonna do what I want to do because my name is Stanley Yelnats. I'm teaching the boy to read. It's innocent. I don't understand the problem. It's no big deal. And Dr. Pendensky's like, I know you mean well, Stanley, but the mental stress to his brain just made his blood boil and he can't handle it. And then Zero's like, sure. And then Dr. Pendensky goes, what does D-I-G spell?
Might as well teach this shovel to read. Go ahead, Zero, take it. It's all you'll ever be good for. D-I-G. What's that spell?
And Zero goes,
Dig.
squeak. He goes, bang, bang, bang. Dig. And then he just runs. He just books it. He's just like, honey, I don't got time for you. Bye. Bye-bye. It's been real, but not real enough. Deuces. And he just keeps running. And then Stanley's like, Zero, run, run, Zero, run. I'm just like, yeah, Zero, keep running, bro. You're gonna be okay, run. And then he just keeps running and running and running until we don't see him anymore. And then the warden's like, because Mr. Sir has his gun out, and the warden's like, don't shoot. And he's like, I wasn't gonna shoot. And he's like, oh, what are we gonna do? And then the three chuckleheads, the warden, Dr. Pendensky, and Mr. Sir, they're having this little meeting about, well, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Zero had no family, but how do we actually know that? What are we gonna do? And then Dr. Pendensky's like, there's nobody. No one cares about Hector Zeroni. And then Stanley comes in and he's like, I do. I'm like, exactly. Exactly. Stanley loves Zero. I love Zero. Don't you ever, 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 ever say Hector Zeroni's name in vain. I will come through that TV, man. Okay? Don't you do it. Now, Anyways, so fast forward, we get a new person in camp because Zero's gone, and his name is Twitch. Can I just say something? Twitch is the most... It's not that he's annoying. It's not that there's really nothing wrong with him. He just comes in at a really awkward time where we don't even get to really dive into his character. Because he's not there for more than like a couple scenes, and then he's gone. And I'm just like, what? We didn't even get to learn about you. But whatever, movie. So yeah, Twitch is there. Reason he got in there, Twitch, joyriding, tried to steal a car, whatever. So next we see them digging holes. Stanley's trying to teach Twitch about it, all the things. And he sees the keys are in the water truck. So Stanley's like, this is a good opportunity for me to go look for Zero. And Twitch is like, yeah, do it, steal it. Twitch is like, steal the car. And then Stanley gets in the car, tries to go on a joyride, not paying attention, and then just basically goes like this, vroom, into a hole. And I'm just like, go figure, right? So then he just runs off. Everybody's cheering for him. He's like, oh, this is amazing. And he just runs off. Eventually, Stanley finds Zero under a boat. And Stanley and Zero delightfully partake in some sploosh. And if you don't know what sploosh is, I don't know why you don't know what sploosh is. But sploosh is basically fermented or pickled peaches, basically. And apparently they're amazing. I've never tried such sploosh, but what would have been a really good marketing tool after the movie came out was to put sploosh onto the shelves of grocery stores everywhere. I would have bought it 1 billion times, okay? I need to try said sploosh. Anyways, so after they partake in some sploosh, Stanley's like, let's go back to camp. Let's tell them where we found the actual Kissing Kate Barlow lipstick tube. And let's make it so that they're not mad at us. Nothing happens. We're the star of this town. And everybody's happy. And Zero's like, honey, I literally have no family. I literally have nothing to live for. I'm not going back to people who are basically evil. And I'm like, exactly. Like, why would you go back to something that's basically evil? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. So Stanley eventually ends up seeing the thumb. So there's this story. While Kissing Kate Barlow is out in the Wild Wild West stealing from guys, she actually steals some loot from one of Stanley's great grandfathers, and Stanley yelling that's the first. And basically the story is that Stanley yelling that's the first survived off of God's thumb. And so they end up going up this mountain where God's thumb is supposedly, and when they're up in this mountain like this, they're up on the mountain, they get about halfway. And during the time, Stanley's teaching Zero to read and spelling and all this stuff, and it's really cute. And then eventually Zero starts to sway. And his curly little fro, which is so dang cute, he starts to get it caught in branches, and he starts to get really sleepy and like pass out. So Shia Stanley has to go and carry him up the mountain. And then he carries him up the mountain.
Oh, you must carry Madame Saroni up the mountain and sing while I drink, so I can get strong too.
Once they get up the mountain, once they're up the mountain, they end up at this small little like river. And while they're at the river, they find these onions. And apparently they taste amazing. Fun fact, the onions that they used that Stanley and Cleo were eating during that scene are basically really just apples, waxy, edible paper or something like that. Watch this DVD and you'll find out lots of glorious behind the scenes things, especially if you listen to the commentary on here. It's amazing, and deleted scenes and everything else. It's incredible. Plug. So while they're up there at the river pond lake thing, they are eating the onions, and Stanley starts to sing this chant, this lullaby. If only the woodpecker sighs, the bark on the trees were as soft as the skies. If only, like he starts singing that. And basically you start to see like Madame Zeroni's on the screen and stuff, and like the curse has been lifted because he took Zero up the mountain and he sang him that song while he was nourished by the pond, lake, river thing. And it's amazing. And if you didn't catch on by now, Madame Zeroni and Hector Zeroni, okay, they're fam. They're fam bam. Okay, Zero is definitely related to Eartha Kitt. It's amazing. So yeah, so basically the curse is lifted, and they fall asleep. They wake up in the morning, and Zero just goes, look, bro, I have to tell you what happened, because if I don't tell you about what happened and how you got to Camp Green Lake in the first place, I won't be able to really be your brother. Like, I will not be able to be your BFF. We won't be able to be friends. Like, I feel like I have to tell you because it's my fault you're here. And then he's just like, I don't understand, Zero, but okay. So Zero's like, listen, I told you I was a homeless kid. I was basically an orphan. So I was at this homeless shelter, right? I see these beautiful shoes that were being auctioned off for charity, which I guess we're a charity case, so whatever. I was being auctioned off for us. And I see the shoes and they just look really cool. And I'm just like, bro, like these seem amazing. So I steal them. I walk away with the shoes on my feet. And I'm just like, yo. Until everybody's crying out, the shoes are gone, the shoes are gone. I didn't know that they were sweet feet. I didn't know. I just didn't know. I'm homeless. What do they want? And I see the cops coming and I'm like, bro, I cannot get taken by the cops, okay? I may never meet my mother this way. So I take the shoes off, which they never explain this, but Zero, even in the book, is small, right? How is he wearing Clyde Livingston Sweet Feet shoes? He's a pro athlete, like a big guy, and Zero's like my height or shorter, and how is he wearing them shoes? But whatever. So I throw them off the balcony and they hit you in the head, and that's how this whole history of us meeting happens. And he's like, how'd you get into Camp Green Lake? And he's like, well, I stole some shoes from a Payless like 2 days later. And Stanley just starts laughing. And he's like, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, I just feel happy and lucky. And like something really great just happened. And like the fact that we are here on God's thumb and eating these onions, and we just had some sploosh, and like I brought you up the mountain and I sang you that song and you got nourished, everything feels calm. And Zero's like, me too, bro. Me too. So what you want to do now? And he's like, can we just go back and dig like one more hole? And he's like, what you saying, Stanley? And he's like, basically, they go to dig one more hole because Stanley knows that the treasure that was stolen from his family could be somewhere on Camp Green Lake. So he's like, let's go dig this hole and let's see. So Zero's like, I ain't got nothing else better to do with my life. Let's go. So they go in the middle of the night or really early morning to try to go and dig one last hole. And so they steal the shovels and whatever. They're trying to be real quiet about it. And they're like digging in this one hole that Stanley swears is the hole. He swears that's the hole. So they go digging in it. And they're doing like the chain gang thing. Burr, 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 burr. And I'm just like, okay, all right. So they're digging them holes, digging them holes, and eventually they find the treasure. But lo and behold, who shows up but the Chucklehead Gang? So the warden, Dr. Pendensky, and Mr. Sir just show up out of nowhere with the flashlight in their face and everything. But there's also some yellow spotted lizards everywhere. So they're like, be careful, be careful. And they're just like down there like, okay, they can either get up and get bitten up by these lizards, or we can just sit down here with this treasure. But either way. And during the time when Zero and Stanley were out on God's thumb, Stanley's attorney actually comes, because I guess they got an attorney, I don't know how, but his attorney actually comes to camp and says that Stanley was innocent the whole time. And the warden's like, we don't know where he is, so too bad, lady. And she's like, how do you not know where he is? This is basically horrible. Like, you are a horrible person. I'm coming back with my goon squad. And so while Stanley and Zero are in the hole, you see Stanley's attorney plus the cops following behind, and Mr. Sir goes, I think they're back selling Girl Scout cookies. And I'm just like, wow, what a joke. So anyways, so while they're in the hole, the warden basically tells us this incredibly annoying story about how I was just a child, brother. I was just a child. And my grandpappy, oh, if you haven't figured it out yet, her grandpappy is Troy, who was obsessed with finding Kiss and Kate Barlow's treasure, and basically obsessed over it so much to the point where the warden had to dig every single summer that she was with him, every single dang summer, in the hot Texas heat, looking for some treasure that she doesn't even care about.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad! You keep digging!
Well, excuse me.
It'll take me one day.
And she was just like, my grandpappy, he used to make me, Stanley, he used to make me dig in the hot sun every day to find the treasure. And Stanley's like, and I'm supposed to care. Me, Stanley Yelnats, I'm supposed to care. Which, if you also haven't figured out by now, Stanley and Yelnats Stanley backwards. Anyways, so eventually Stanley's just like, look, these slithers are not gonna hurt me. So he gets up, and the reason they didn't hurt him was because of the onions and the peaches. So he gets up with the treasure, and the warden's like, let me see it, Stanley, let me see it. And he's like, nah. And then Dr. Pendensky tries to get it, and Zero's like, you can't have it. It says Stanley Yelnats. And Dr. Pendensky's like, but he can't read. And he's like, I can do a lot more than you think I can, fool. Get out of my face. So they go over, they see the attorney, and the attorney's like, Stanley, you're free to go, basically. But then the cops are like, do you guys even have a warrant to have this camp going on? And they're like, and the warden's like, I thought all the legal things were in order. Talk to those chuckleheads. And then he's like, Marion Seville, which is this Mr. Sir's name, Marion Seville. And the boys are like, Marion? Isn't that a girl's name? And everybody starts laughing. And I'm just like, Mr. Sir, you fool, you fool. And then they're like, yeah, and I bet you thought Dr. Pendensky was a real doctor, huh? And they're like, what? And I'm like, duh. Like, if you really thought he was a real doctor, you are dumb. You are stupid. If you thought he was a real, like, psychiatrist, a real therapist, a real counselor, no. So, yeah. Okay? No. So basically, those three get arrested. Stanley gets to go home, and he's like, at first he's like, you know, Stanley, we gotta go. And he's like, I can't leave Zero. He can't leave Hector. And he's like, I'm sure Hector will be okay. And he's like, I'll be fine, Stanley. And he's like, nah, bro. No. I'm taking Hector with me. We leaving. Deuces. I cannot leave my brother. And so he's like, okay. Come on, Hector. And basically after that, it starts to rain on Camp Green Lake. And it's the most amazing thing ever. And it just starts pouring rain. Everybody's so happy. They're jumping up and down in the rain. And eventually Stanley and Zero end up leaving. And they're like, D10 for life! D10 for life! And I'm just like, yeah, bro. D10 for life! And so they leave. They get back to Stanley's house. And everybody's being introduced to Hector Zeroni. And he says, my name is Hector Zeroni. And then Stanley's grandfather's like, did you say Zeroni? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, and he's like hugs him and stuff. And then they realize that all the money in that treasure chest, basically because of inflation, is so much more money now versus even back then. And also that, you know, because of, you know, Hector Zeroni being who Hector Zeroni is, they're like, well, thank you to you, the curse is lifted, and now we are not going to be in poverty anymore, and neither are you, because we're going to share this load with you because we love you. And they were like, Zero's basically like, oh boy, goody. So then what does Zero do with some of his money? He gets that private investigator team, and he's like, I'm gonna go find my mama. So he goes and finds his mom, and they just have this big warm embrace at the end, and you're just like, Zero, embrace the love, Zero, embrace the love. Hug your mommy, hug her. And then basically the movie ends with Stanley and Zero living next to each other. They end up having this barbecue together and invite all the D10 boys, which they don't say this, but I would hope this would have happened, because that would have been rude not to do. But I really hope this happened. I hope that Stanley and Zero decided to give even a little bit of their money to some of the D10 boys so they can come out of poverty. Because I just feel like that's important. I feel like that's important. To keep all the money for yourself would have been rude and petty, but to give some to your boys would have been like cool, right? Anyways, so the movie basically ends with them having a barbecue, living the life at Stanley and Zero's, and then they watch the little, there ends up being a little commercial with Clyde Sweet Feet. And basically, Sweet Feet is in the commercial, and it's basically a commercial for Sploosh. Because Stanley's dad, while they're at Camp Green Lake, while they're on God's thumb, ends up figuring out that onions and peaches is the key to saving them. Onions and peaches is what makes your feet not smell. Onions and peaches is what make your feet not smell. Actually, I don't know if that's real, but if it is, I should try that one day. Not that my feet ever smell. But I'm just saying, like, if somebody ever needed to know what helps your feet not smell, get you some onions and some peaches, because that's a package deal. So, yeah. And then the movie basically ends. And it's just like, yeah, me and Zero together forever. BFFs. And, yeah, and then they just play the descent. And they play the D10 rap, and the movie ends, and credits roll, and everybody's happy. So, yeah. So, what are my overall thoughts about this movie? So, if you don't know me personally in real life, you won't know that I am a whole stan, like I said in the beginning. So, for me, this movie always has, and I think always will, hold up at a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, A+, 100 out of 100. It's gonna get a perfect score. And I know for a lot of people, some people have issues with the movie. Some people don't see this as a critically acclaimed movie or book. The book that came out in 1998 actually ended up being a Newbery Award-winning book. The author of Holes the book actually did the screenplay for this movie, Louis Sacker, and this is just an incredible movie to me. I think the reason why I fell in love with this movie to begin with, besides the fact that I could relate with Zero, and the fact that he couldn't read and I have dyslexia, the fact that I just really loved Zero, and when I was 12 years old, I was under the impression that I was gonna marry him one day. Like, me and Zero were just gonna be a thing, and like, that's just it, me and Zero forever. I also think I just love the romance of the movie, the outlaw nature, the adventure story, the best friends going out and fighting for what they believe in, what's good. It has Eartha Kitt in it, Dulé as Mr. Sam the Onion Man, we love it. Patricia Arquette as Kissing Kate Barlow. It has so many incredible people in it. Sigourney Weaver as the Warden, and John Voight as Mr. Sir, and Fonzie as Stanley's dad, and just so many incredible people. And I just think that this is an important book, important movie for all generations to watch, especially kids in late elementary school, middle school, who, maybe reading is hard for you. This is a great inspirational story about, overcoming things. And it's, what if maybe you're, a homeless youth, or maybe you're, live under the poverty line, or you're a troubled youth. I think this is a great story for all people of all shades, colors, everything. It's an everybody story about sticking it to the man, and also, about true love, about brotherhood and sisterhood. There's no girls in this, and I just think it's an everybody story. I think this is a great telling of a important story in adolescence, and I think it's great. So yeah, this movie will always be at a 10 out of 10, at a 100 out of 100, at a 5 out of 5. It'll always be my A+ movie. And so I don't really know what else to talk about with this movie, but I could talk about this movie forever. But yeah, this was just my movie review portion of my Holes reviews. The next part of this will probably be me reviewing the whole soundtrack to the movie, and then eventually I will do a book review and also an audio commentary for the movie. So stay tuned for all those things and more. But yeah, this is just my review of Holes the movie. It is incredible, 10 out of 10. If you've never seen it, please do yourself a favor and go watch it. But this is an A+ movie. I'm a stan, so I think of things a little bit differently with this movie, but this is my movie, and I will love this movie forever. So yeah, favorite characters, of course, Zero. And this is a funny movie. This is a heartwarming movie. This is a triumphant movie, and it's just a story about adolescent triumphance in the face of the law, in the face of careless adults, and just finding yourself. And I think this is a really important movie, so please go watch it. This is my review, Holes. Until next time, peace and blessings.